Hey, boys and girls, how you doing? Yeah, last night was what it was. Arsenal pretty much didn't really deserve to win the game because half of the team just looked jaded. Thank you for you guys who participated in the stream last night. I got really rowdy in the stream and it took a toll on my lungs towards the end of that. Be sure I got a good night's sleep last night. But I do have to say that by no means did we deserve to win the game last night. And for many different factors. You can see now why the Spurs game was cancelled. As I said, it's not just about the fact that there was one player that had COVID. Arsenal, previous to that game, had 12 players who had caught COVID. And if anybody knows anything about COVID, it's not something you wake up the next morning from and recover fully. Some players, they have no effects, and other players like Martin Odegaard and Emil Smith Rowe and Tomiyasu have had a harder time because of breathing issues. Now, for things like that, it takes slightly longer to recover. And to be honest with you, Mikel Arteta was put in a position last night where he pretty much is down to the bare bones and even had to play Thomas Partey, which I didn't agree with. That was a 9 hour flight. Man landed at 12 o'clock midday and was already suited up to play in a League Cup semi-final just 8 hours after. That can't be good. It can't be a good decision. It can't be a smart decision, and it wasn't. But what else could Arteta have done? His only other option was Coutinho, Hutchinson against one of the best teams in the league. And you're really just asking for too much from the player. Honestly, I mean, he had gone through some grueling matches for Ghana, only to be put in this position. And it's not just him. A lot of the players, guys, were just jaded. Smith Rowe looks shot. I mean, Smith Rowe hasn't started in over 2 months. Sambi has only started one game in 2 months, and that game he didn't play very well in. And Tomiyasu hasn't played in a month and looked very much the part of a player who was struggling to recover from what he was going through. And this sort of paved its way through the team's performance. And I have to say, January has not been a great month. 3 red cards. We haven't won a game, and we haven't scored in the last 3 games. So it's just one of those situations where we're going to have to get out of that funk with a good performance against Burnley on Sunday. And I feel bad for the team because they've been put in this position. I see some people on the forum who are just going at it again. And it's just like, come on, guys, really? Let's humanize this thing a little. Let's understand what the players and the manager has been going through. And a lot of it is self-inflicted from the front office because the decisions to send away all of those players on loan doesn't look so smart now. But there's nothing we can do about that. And most of this is because of those players' requests. None of those players wanted to stay here. Mari, Maitland-Niles, Klasnach, they all wanted to leave and go. And Eddie Nketiah can't wait to get out the front door. It's because of the lack of playing time. And that decision is on them. Remember, if a player goes out on loan first, it's always the player's decision. Always. Sometimes when the team talks about it, it's for other reasons. But mainly, a player, especially with the World Cup coming up, look what we're hearing now with the likes of Bernd Leno. And he wants to play. And the only way he's going to be an option for Germany in the summer in the World Cup is if he's playing regularly every week. So a lot of people are sort of calling out Arsenal for doing all of this stuff and letting players go. But many of the times, the option's been taken out of their hands. Anyway, guys, the loss against Liverpool last night pretty much was set in stone. Liverpool were heady, professional. They had a lot of poise and played like an experienced team. So take nothing away from them. And that Jota always does well against us. And I said when the game started that he's the only player on the pitch that I'm concerned about. Lo and behold, he comes in there and wins the game for them. And that's what it takes. And for Arsenal, a lot of their goals have been coming from these young midfielders of late. And they don't really have a striker. That last night was the epitome of Arsenal's problems. It really is. And why, for the life of me, you're not starting Martinelli up front is anybody's reason. Could you imagine with his level of hold-up play and his level of trickiness, what he'll be able to do in the box? I still don't know why they haven't done that. And I remember, I always go back to when Aubameyang had a red card a few seasons back. and Martinelli had to go away to Stamford Bridge and play at Chelsea, and had that stunning performance, that 70-yard run where he scored a goal. But he actually scored 2 goals in the 3 games that Aubameyang had the red card for, and filled in there well. But he hasn't played as a main striker since, and that is still for me an option. Then there's other different things you can do on the left-hand side. Obviously, Smith Rowe can play on the left. Nketiah can play wide out on the left as well. We know he's played there and has looked very heady for the team. But I just think right now some of the options in terms of where the players are and the formations might not seem to be helping the situation. I did like Odegaard at holding, and I said a holding midfielder, he plays very well there. He's played well there for the national team, and I expected him to do well last night, and he did. But I would just like to see him further up the pitch, because that's where he can do the most damage. For someone who's been tagged as the most creative player in the last 2 months of the Premier League, to have them sitting that far back doesn't really help the service and the lack of opportunities that the strikers get. However, when you do get those opportunities, you're supposed to put them away. And that beautiful pass from Sambi Lokonga to Lacazette. There was one actually that went over from Ben White to Saka before that. But Saka and Aubameyang did nothing with those chances. Didn't even get the shots on target. But last night, guys, epitomizes the problems that Arsenal has at the striker position. And it shows you why they're going hammer and tongs to try and get Vlahovic. So moving on to Vlahovic, the situation, all sorts. We've been hearing things like Fiorentina has had their bid accepted of 66 million with 88 million and add-ons. We've been hearing all of that. That's been happening. The president himself has come out and said, yes, we have had a bid for the player. There's another person who's on the chair board of Fiorentina who says they haven't. So even reports out of Italy now are all over the place. But the bottom line is that Arsenal want the player, Fiorentina want to sell the player, agent wants to make his money because that's the only way agents make money. And the bottom line is it's the player. Don't matter, don't focus on Fiorentina and Arsenal. There's deals there to be done. And Fiorentina came out today and said 10 days left, it's open season. We're up to sell the player. So the player is for sale in January, right now. And that's coming from Fiorentina, and that's official. So it really comes down to the player, and I have always believed that he wants to go to Juventus. I've always believed that that is his first option, and maybe his second option is Arsenal, and that's why this thing is dragging on. So it's got nothing to do with how much Arsenal are trying or how much money they're putting up with or anything. That's not an issue. The issue is the player has to overcome the fact that Juventus can't afford him. That is the long and short of it. And the agent at some point has got to sit in front of the player and say, bro, I know what you want, but what you want and what you've got are 2 different things. And you're going to have to come to an understanding that the move that you really want simply just cannot happen now, because as we saw from the Locatelli deal last summer, they're cash strapped and they're struggling to even make the minimal deals get done. This is a maximum deal of massive potential, and they just aren't in the game yet. Has anybody noticed that we're not even hearing Juventus talk? That's because they can't. They are not in a position where they can scream at the top of the mountain because they don't have the money to buy the player. So all waiting this out in January will do is it will do 2 things. It will lower the amount of money that Fiorentina will get from the player, which Fiorentina don't want. That's why the urgency is for the team to sell him now. Secondly, it will invite more clubs into the mix this summer. Because if you're talking about 66 million is going to go down to 30 million with 1 year left on his deal, then all those clubs like Real Madrid and Barcelona, AC Milan, Juventus maybe, who are cash strapped, can start to sort of get into the discussion. All because the player has waited it out. That's all it boils down to. So I think Arsenal are doing the right thing in this situation by trying to pursue it as hard as they can. And that's all they can do, guys. And it really is down to the player to make the decision. And that is where we are with the situation. Doesn't really matter what you hear or what anybody says, this is only going to come down to one thing, and that is Vlahovic himself. He is the one that can pull the trigger on this deal and turn it around in Arsenal's favour, or just blow it up in everybody's faces. And that's the truth. Burnley is a game that we have to win, guys. Burnley is a must-win game now because January, unfortunately, has just not been very good. And I was a little embarrassed with the booing last night, as I said at the end of my stream. I was just a little embarrassed. This is the second time I've been like this in this season. The first time was Chelsea when we lost 2-0 at the Emirates in our second game, where we had 9 players out with COVID and injuries. We had 6 players on the pitch who were under the age of 21, and you lot booed them off. Yeah, that's not smart. And that's not going to help these young players. And for the life of me, can you just get behind and back your team? Because they're young. They're the players that are doing things right now. The successes that this team has had is only down to the younger players. What's been letting them down time after time after time is the older players not producing, red cards, throwing the team under the bus. That is not the younger players. That is the older players, guys. So please get behind this team and let's take home a win on Sunday at Burnley. So I'll speak to you guys then. And listen, chin up, guys, man. It's a long way to go. We've only just passed the halfway point. Got, what, 17, 18 games left to play in the season. And then there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be happening to turn the tide of challenging for top 4. And I never thought I would say that, because for me, I barely even thought we would finish 6th. But, you know, that's where we are, guys. So I'll speak to you guys the next one. Peace out.